The milkman, the paper boy, everyone you see. Do 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 do. Whatever happened to the people on TV? Why is every word they say another lie to me? Do 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 do. I don't improv as good as Owen, but I could I could riff a little bit. All right, let's go. Live wired. What are we gonna call this one? What are we gonna call this one? TikTok. We're gonna call it. I don't even know if I want to call it the scientific method, because when you talk about certain scientific things on TikTok, it well anyway, I don't think it pushes them out. But we'll talk about science is a method. That's what we'll call it. Science is a method. Whatever happened to the people on TV? The milkman, the paper boy. Here we go. Ready? We are going to go live in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, TikTok. We are live. I am a little late, but I'm late for good reason. I was up all morning, and as usual, I do mean all morning. I've worked a full work day by the time most people have lunch. But I've been up all morning, and I have been getting ready our inaugural, first ever science lesson, original classical learner science curriculum. I'm so excited. Hey Melissa, how you doing? So excited that I was able to roll it out this morning, and I thought I could get that all done by 9:30, but I got it done by, about 10:30. So anyway, very excited about it. So today we rolled out the first ever original classical learner science curriculum, and it's rooted in one basic philosophy. And I've been putting it together with my wife, and she's been putting together the next lessons along with myself. And I'm really trying to stick to one root philosophy with teaching children science. And I think it, more than anything else, is what is missing from our culture and people's ability to discern, because it's such an important topic, especially in light of everything that's happened in the last couple of years, where really, it's being used to justify the stripping of our basic liberties, right? I mean, you have corporations telling people, hey, you have to do this because, there's a guy on television who says you got to get an ouchie, right? And his name, Mr. wants to give you an ouchie. I certainly won't call him a doctor, the guy sold his soul. Can you be a doctor without a soul? Let me just shut this because I don't want the mosquitoes to get me. Hold on. I live in the South, and they laugh at the northern mosquitoes because, they're a joke in comparison. But, so, people's ability to understand science, to comprehend it, to use their discernment is so critical. And we have all over the world where there has been a massive shift in what the powers that be are saying in terms of these are your rights and whatnot. And this is really the root of the justification for that. So why is it that someone like myself could look at the guy who wants to give you an ouchie and say, this isn't sound, right? When this guy comes across and says, it's settled, my first thought is like a financial settlement, like someone handed you some cash and now it's set. That's my thought when I hear that. So why is it that someone like myself is able to see that and discern that, and so many people aren't able to? And I think the root cause of it gets down to, from the time children are little, they are taught, they are indoctrinated into the religion of scientism. Into the religion of scientism. And what I mean by that is it has become there's a guy in a lab coat, and he works for an authoritative body, and this is what he's saying, so now it's doctrine. And then you go to question what they're saying, and they go, you can't question that. You can't question what he just said. So we're not talking about science anymore, right? As soon as you tell me that I can't question something, we're not talking about science anymore. We're talking about scientism, right? We're talking about the most destructive religion in the history of the world. And I do mean that. And people say, what do you mean? How can you say that? Look at everything I just covered on the Georgia Guidestones. Look at what they are using climate change, right, to justify, right? When Mr. The Gates guy, the guy that named his company after a part of his body. What was his company's name? He named it after a part of his body. That guy. Microsoft. Right? Right? So science has been subverted, right? I know, you want to come at Jesus, right? So, right, that guy Bill Gates. So what did he say about carbon emissions, right? He said that you have to get that basically down to zero. Look at the first pillar of the Georgia Guidestones, where they're talking about getting the population of humanity down from 7 billion people to, allegedly, to 500 million people. I mean, this is you-know-what aside on a level that humanity has never seen. And they're justifying it through the religious doctrine of scientism. And, I saw someone made a comment there. They're like, oh, so what is the answer? Jesus. That's a straw man argument, right? Whether the answer is Jesus or anything else, the topic at hand that I'm talking about is science being used as a religion? And it certainly is, right? Conspiracy theories are not science, right? And the fact that people don't see, you're probably saying that to me, oh, look, he's doing conspiracy theories. But is what happened in the last couple of years rooted in science, or is it in fact itself a conspiracy? You see, it really, and the reason that you think that way, the reason that you can't see past the lies, is you've been indoctrinated from the time you were little to look at science as a religion. So if the lab coats are saying it, then it's true. Because children aren't taught, hey, this is the method, and the method is what matters, and science is only science when you're questioning it constantly. And as soon as they're telling you that no, you can't question this, and it's not just you, by the way, it's not just you. You understand that, it's one thing if little old Brett's questioning it. You do understand that all of the doctors, all over the country, these doctors, were questioning it, saying they don't agree with it, and they were being told, no, they're not allowed to question it. You see, you follow a religion, and I just called it out. I held up a black mirror to you. I showed you that, hey, 420 Drya, I showed you that what you follow is a religion, and you responded, right? You responded in a way, right, that the same way a religious radical would respond. You're like, how dare you? How dare you? Those are conspiracy theories, right? But you're the one that follows conspiracy theories. What I'm talking about is sound science. So when our children are young, especially, and you have to balance this, because there is the magical wonder of science, because science is beautiful. I love science. It's the scientific method is one of the greatest achievements in the history of humanity. So science is beautiful, and it is wonderful to show children the different things science can do. When you mix certain chemicals and you have scientific reactions, right? And the science behind that is usually pretty sound, right? Because you could replicate it, right? You can replicate that science. You can do it time and time again and get the same result. And you want to show children how to do these things. But the problem is that the way children are taught science, it's not really stressing the method. So what it starts to do is it really teaches them that, hey, science has the answer to everything, and therefore the scientists cannot be questioned. Where if you want your children to understand it, you have to embed the scientific method into everything that they do. Don't give them the answers, just prompt them to think critically, to use their discernment, to analyze what happened, in their with the results of their experiment without giving them the answer. And so this week, what we're doing with our first scientific experiment, right, is children are studying apple oxidation, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get too into the doctor wants to give you an ouchie, and the reason for that is if you question these things, you're silenced, right? But the very nature of that, the very fact that I can't get into it, is it refutes it, right? It's like, oh, right, so what they're doing isn't, it's not that. It's not that. And anyone who can't see that is just, they're religious, right? They're religious. They can't possibly question the doctrine that is science. And again, I could prove, again, through, I use the Guidestones as a reference because we talked a lot about it this week, but the United Nations and their stance on reproductive stuff and their thoughts on population alone shows what a dangerous religion it is. It really is dangerous. I mean, you could be like Christianity, you can be like Islam, whatever. Show me another religion that has talked about reducing population like that. That is some scary, scary stuff we're talking about, So anyway, so what we're doing is we're studying apple oxidation. And in the first lesson, the students are going to take an apple, cut it up into 9 separate slices, and then they're going to get 8 different liquids. 8 different liquids. And apple juice, orange juice, sugar water, salt water. You could use a variety of things. Vinegar, doesn't really matter. Just 8 different liquids. You dip 8 of the apple slices into those liquids, and you leave 1 apple slice to the side. Now, the reason we leave 1 apple slice to the side is from the time children are little, we want to show them that we always want to have a scientific control, right? If you're doing science, you have control groups. So we put the apple to the side, and we're going to prompt the children to identify that is your control, right? I mean, there's actually more than one control in this experiment, but to simplify it, that is your scientific control. Then we prompt the children, okay, what is your independent variable, or what are your independent variables? And again, with some parental guidance and some examples we give them, as well as literature on what these variables are, they'll identify, hey, the apple juice, the orange juice, the vinegar, the salt water, the water, these are all independent variables. What is the dependent variable? They have to identify. So the dependent variable is what happens to the apple skin after the apple is cut. They're treated by, they're dipped into water, orange juice. The dependent variable is what happens to that apple skin after. That's dependent on the independent variables that we can control and manipulate. And and the apple on the side with the oxygen is our scientific control. And then children do the experiment and they read about oxidation, and they read about the process and what's happening, and then they're prompted to make their own observations, observe what's happening, and then to make their own conclusion as to what actually happened. And we don't give them a definitive answer. That's really for them to think critically about. And what I really want to stress to the parents is it's not so much about them getting the answer or whatnot. Like, yeah, we want to go over what's happening with electrons and stuff. Like, that's cool and all. But what we really want to do is question them. So why do you think that? So do we really, even like when they read about the electrons and, they're going to read about electrons being pulled out of the air by oxygen, right? But even with that, you could ask your children, well, do we really know that's what happened? Or, do we know that when the orange juice was applied to the apple, it prevented the apple from browning? And they'll be like, well, yeah, like, right, like, because you say to your children, well, did you actually observe the electrons? Like, did you see them? Did you really know? And they're like, right? It was like, so what did you observe? I observed that when I put the apple slice into lemon juice and then I put the apple slice down, that slice didn't brown. Oh, so what can we conclude from that? That lemon juice has some type of effect that prevents the apple slice from browning. What do you think that effect is? And then they, maybe they're like, hey, I think that effect is maybe the lemon juice provides a coating which protects the apple slice from the air, and the air is what's causing the apple to brown. Why do you think the air is causing the apple to brown? Well, in the apple slice that we didn't put a coating on, that we just left exposed to air, that apple slice turned brown. So the apple slice that had the lemon juice on it, it had a coating, so maybe it wasn't exposed to that air. And what you're doing is you're training your child's mind to actually think critically about things, and you really want to separate what your child knows from the educated guesses that they can make, right? And then they could, as they get older, they can do deeper experiments where maybe they can actually observe the electrons being pulled out of the apple, right, from the air, right? But you really want to separate so you're training your child to say, okay, this is what I know. This is what I've read. Based on what I know and what I've read, this is what I think is happening. It's the same thinking process that if you watch my streams, you should go back and watch my streams on YouTube on the Georgia Guidestones, as well as the stream I did on Instagram on the Georgia Guidestones. It's the same exact thinking process of, can you train your child's mind to take this information is concrete. This information is coming from primary documents. It's coming from firsthand testimonies. Now, even that could be a lie, but you're basing it. Good girl, Lucy Lou. Chasing squirrels out there. Good girl, Lou, get those squirrels. Squirrels try to steal all our food. We homestead. So yeah, your child, you want them to take, okay, we have primary documents and firsthand testimony, and this is what we know about the Georgia Guidestones. Then we have conjecture, right? We have hearsay. We have information from the primary documents. We know that 3 prominent Freemasons worked on the creation of the Georgia Guidestones. We know that the United Nations, at least from firsthand testimony, did the translations into 12 different languages on the Georgia Guidestones. What do the Freemasons typically stand for? What do the United Nations say they want to do? Does that fall in line with what is listed on the Guidestones? And people can make their own unique understanding, their own unique theories about, okay, so, I think maybe, the Guidestones might have been done, or, the United Nations might have had something to do with them, right? But you don't know that, right? I actually don't think that. I don't think that at all. I tend to think it was, just a small group who had a lot of means available, and they were kind of cultish. I don't think it's as grand a conspiracy as people think, but it's interesting. It's an interesting case study. So the point is, it's the same thing. What you're doing is you're teaching your children how to think, how to take information, use their discernment, separate what they know from conjecture, and then they can make their own theories. Like, I have my theories onto how the world works, and a lot of people that were like in here earlier would be like, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, I guarantee you my theories of how the world works are in a much more solid foundation than yours, okay? So, right? Because it's a process of thinking of, this is what I know, and then I could, base my understanding of the world off of that, and then I could, do deductions and, but you, as soon as a person loses the ability to take what they know from sound proof, and they conflate that with what they think, then their worldview just goes, and then confirmation bias comes in, and the next thing you know, they can't discern their way out of a paper bag. And you saw that with people that were in this chat earlier. So anyway, this is our first science lesson. I'm so excited about it. I hope that you all do it and find it to be valuable. And you can do it, obviously, without joining my homeschool community, because I literally give it away like I do all my stuff, right? I make videos of how to do all this stuff. I'm not a cult. I don't try to hide much knowledge from the world. But what I do try to do is show people that your life and your children's life will be better with me in it. And if anyone's interested in what I do and they want to check out Homeschools Connected, it's classicallearner.com. Homeschools Connected, it's $10 a month with the discount code FREEDOM, all lowercase. I have been rapidly releasing curriculum here now. Just yesterday, I released my free library plan, in which it guides your children to make, they're called My Free Little Libraries. And your children do carpentry. They build, it's like kind of like a birdhouse, but like it's a little bigger and has a door that opens. And then you put it up in the community and people put books into it. They donate books, and then any child could come, take a book, read that book. They could bring it back, put it back in the box. Really cool thing, good way to get involved in the community. And another cool aspect of it is my little free libraries. They actually have a nationwide registry. So you could register your box. It goes onto a GPS map, so people can find that box, and they send you a plaque in the mail. So you get a charter number, you get a plaque, My Little Free Library. Really cool thing, and just a good way to give your children a sense of accomplishment, a sense of community, to show them that they can do different things in the world, because our children are capable of doing amazing things in this world. So I'm going to go back and read some of your comments. I'll try to avoid the trolley comments, and we could... but that is what it is. And I was really excited. I've been really excited about doing this science thing. And it's something that I'm so passionate about. And it's something that I really, as I ramp up with the curriculum now, I really plan on honing in and teaching children the process of learning, critical thinking, how to use your discernment. And when that's the focus of education, your children will do amazing things in the world. And with everything we do, just process of learning, discernment, critical thinking. The Guidestones, I don't give them my opinion on what happened. I just, hey, this is how I got back to primary documents. This is how I found them. How do you separate, when you read this, information that is from primary documents, that is firsthand accounts from conjecture, right? And then from there, they can formulate their own unique understanding about what the Guidestones are, right? They can do the scientific method, break down the difference between what they know and what they think, and from there, formulate their own unique understanding, and then they could investigate that further, right? At the end of a scientific experiment, one of the things you do is you write down what questions you have going forward. The way in which we teach our children should focus on the process of learning and critical thinking. And if you do that, there's no limit to what they'll do. All right, I'm going to go back and read your comments. Spent a little bit of time going at the trolls. But, on the one hand, I don't like going at the trolls. On the other hand, I love going at the trolls. But what it really does is it allows me to point out the flawed manner through which they think. And the most hilarious part is they display it as they argue with it. I mean, they're like, oh, you're just following conspiracy theories. You don't trust the science. And it's like, do you hear what you said? Trust it? What are you trusting? Why are you trusting people who are so inherently corruptible? In fact, on my other channel, Cubs to Bear, classicallearner.com TikTok channel. Go check that out this morning. The video I made. I don't even want to talk about it on here because that video is being, at the moment. I know their patterns, and certain videos with certain topics get. So that video is being, right? Go watch that video about something called, there is this thing, the replication, and sometimes there's people that have a crisis. So there's this thing, the replication, and sometimes there's people that have a crisis. You can read between the lines and figure out what I'm talking about. But again, I recognize when certain of my videos are being... And then I know what words. I know what words are the bad words. I know the bad words. The bad words. You have gone against the doctrine of scientism. We have indoctrinated you from the time you were little to listen to everything people in a lab coat say. But when the people in a lab coat, 90% of them surveyed, say that there is a major problem with what we're teaching, we will keep that down. And the very nature that I have to talk around it, right? The very nature of that refutes everything those people were saying. You do not follow science when you are following something that is allegedly above reproach. You know what that is, what that red stuff is, but either way, allegedly above reproach, then you do not follow science. That's me in the corner, losing my religion. Oh, I should have used that song. I completely forgot. That would have been so good. I kind of want to take it down and re-upload it with that song. Losing my religion, trying to keep up with you, and I don't know if I can do it. I think I've said too much, or I haven't said enough. Homeschools Connected, ClassicalLearner.com. Thank you, Melissa. Love your content. Keep up the good work. Amen. Let me guess. Only Jesus has the answers. I don't know. I find Muhammad to be inspiring. Oh my God. How can you say that? I do. You can't box me, bro. Once you get outside of that little matrix, you can't box me in. Conspiracy theories are not science. I couldn't agree more. So why do you follow them? I don't... It's so ironic. Absolutely is being used as a religion. You're 100% correct. Ready? All capital letters. You are a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy realist, as in through my degree as a historian and training my mind to get back to primary documents, original sources, to actually prioritize the scientific method. I have learned in my studies that if you don't realize rich and powerful people conspire to get more money and power, you are... I want to use powerful rhetoric, but, all right, you're not allowed... These are words you're not allowed to say, but let's, you might have been dropped, It's a choice and they choose not to see. My ADHD saved me from being indoctrinated from school. I think there's something to that. I think that's why they push the, a variety of reasons, but I think that's why they push, the way they treat that so hard. Like, they said I had ADHD, and they called my mom to the principal office, and they wanted to get some, Ritalin going, and, my mom told them to get lost, and It's the greatest thing anyone's ever done for me, because I wouldn't be the person I am today if they had zapped my creativity. And then this guy's like, bye, in all capital letters, like, no one cares. Go away. You think I want you here? I hope you go. I wish you 1,000 boosters. If the pastor is saying it, it's definitely true. Yeah, exactly. See, it's so funny because these people that rip on, they're ripping Christianity and Jesus and whatnot. They think that I'm like, they think that like, oh, so everything in the Bible is true. I don't believe everything in the Bible is true. I don't care if people say that makes me a bad Christian. I'm a phenomenal Christian. I have an actual relationship with Jesus Christ. I have an actual relationship with God, right? I know about the Council of Nicaea. I know that the Bible has been translated and retranslated 1,000 times. And you could tell me, well, I'm the special boy and I know which one's the correct translation. Yeah, I bet you do. Right? I'm aware that there are, I would think legitimate claims that there were books taken out of the Bible. And like, I'm not going to be ashamed to say that. Now, the Bible in its summation, I think is a phenomenal book. And I think that there's definitely a lot of it is true. And a lot of it is the word of God. And some of it's the subverted word of God. And that's the nature of being in a fallen system. God put us here to use our discernment. If he wanted us to have all the answers, he'd just give us all the answers. We're supposed to spend our lives discovering the answers. And these same forces that ultimately corrupted the institution of Christianity, and I do call it an institution, and the Catholic Church and all these churches, the same factors where people saw opportunity for power and influence and money and social status and ego and not admitting they're wrong, and all of these same things, this fallen nature that ultimately corrupted the institution of Christianity, are these same things, the same fallen nature, fallen nature described in the Bible, by the way, that corrupt science, right? And the reason there is a replication, that thing crisis, is because all of these peer-reviewed journals, they get money, they get attention for posting significant findings. All of these scientists get grant money, get status, get right? They get tenure. They get all of the things that come with it if they have significant findings. And specifically with like grant money, if those findings support certain conclusions, right? So the same forces that corrupted the institution of Christianity and religions throughout the world are the same forces that corrupted science. But the people that don't see that are they're into scientism, authoritative God science. It's a religion to them, right? You follow a religion, and you'll sit here and you'll mock me for following a religion, but at least I can see the fallibility within my religion. I don't claim that the Bible is the exact word of God. And again, I don't care if that makes me unpopular. I think that it's clearly, just from my studies of history and knowing history, it has clearly been doctored. It has clearly been, and why wouldn't they? It's the most powerful book in the history of humanity, right? There's a lot of incentive for a lot of powerful people to doctor that book, right? So, but does that mean that there's not truth in it? Does that mean that it's not the word of God? Yeah, it's definitely, a lot of it is the word of God, and what they grappled and not, that's up for debate. I mean, you're going to knock on the path of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the most inspirational figure in the history of humanity. He is Logos incarnate. He is the Word of God in human form. And Jesus Christ lived humbly. He didn't try to keep up with the Joneses at all. He didn't dress like a fancy boy. He didn't claim to be a fancy boy. He wasn't a churchian. He didn't tell people that, follow me or you're going to hell. He met people with love. He met people with compassion, which is the proper way to meet people. And the only reason I'm attacking you here is because you met me with insults. And you come in here and you want to insult my Lord and Savior. And that's fine. But understand that my Lord and Savior loves you. And that I love you. And that you're a child of God. because that's what Jesus did, and that was the example he gave. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone, as he protected a prostitute from being stoned. He hugged lepers, right? He is Logos incarnate. He is the example, the human example of what we are supposed to be. He forgave Judas for his 30 shekels, right? He said, you will betray me 3 times before I die. And he knew that would happen. And he forgave. As he knew it was his last night on earth, the last thing he did with his 12 apostles is he got down on his knees and he took a cloth and washed their feet. Because what Jesus wanted people to remember, what he wanted his apostles to remember, is that they were not to serve him, is that he lived his life in service of God and in service of humanity itself. He got down on his knees and washed their feet, knowing he was going to die. As he was being dragged to be put up on a cross, to have a thorn of thorns put around his head, to have nails driven through his palms, to have nails driven through his feet, he spoke to his Father. And do you know what he said to his Father? Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. Well, he forgives you because he knows you know not what you do. Who is right? Jesus? Yeah, Jesus is right. Yes, he is. But no, at least my following in Christianity is at least rooted in objectivity. It's rooted in trying to get back to original testimonies and documents. It's rooted in my spiritual connection to the Lord himself. Am I a churchian, right? Am I walking around like John 3:16, John 3:16, John 3:16, it's God or hell? No, like I said, I have immense respect for Islam. I view Muhammad as a great prophet. I don't care if that makes me unpopular. And people, how can you say that? How dare you? I don't care. I don't believe in God. I know God. I have a relationship with God. And he said, how can you say that? How can you say that? You are like a blind person looking at a bird, and we look up in the sky. I'm like, look at that bird. And you're like, there's no bird there. There's no bird there. You believe in that? You're an idiot. Like, no, I have felt God's love. I have felt God's love. And you feel that love when you start to do really good things in the world. And I know I felt that love because I've heard other people that I respect talking about their relationship with God, and they start to describe the same exact phenomenon that I've described, where there's feeling of overwhelming warmth. It takes over your whole body. It tingles through your whole body. I feel it now. I feel it right now. It's amazing. I have felt God's love. So you want to talk about science, you want to talk about God, you think you could like win an argument with like, oh, but who has the answer? Jesus? No, I will fundamentally rip apart your belief in scientism, and I will talk about my Lord and Savior as he's meant to be talked about. Not as a churchian, not because the book said, not because the corrupt pedophile pastor said this, but because Jesus Christ, Logos incarnate, walked the earth as the walking embodiment of how a person should carry themselves throughout this world. And I am very fallen, and I'm not comparing myself to Jesus. I fall so short. I've fallen short about 20 times in this talk alone. I digress. Homeschool parent of teens. Let's avoid the personal opinions. Yeah. Well, you're getting my opinions. I woke up yesterday morning, and someone had made a video threatening to hurt me. Like, they made a whole video about it. because whatever I wasn't trying to, but I guess their wife was triggered by some of the things I said, and that's just kind of par for the course of the life I live and whatnot. But the person that had gotten triggered, they were like, I was basically, they tried to troll me, and I was responding to them, and they were like, you're so unprofessional, you're so this, you're so that, and I was like, you're like, I haven't lived my life the way I've lived my life to be what you want me to be what society wants me to be. I mean, I didn't sell my house and move across the country to get out of debt, start a homestead, start growing my own food, spend an enormous amount of hours building my own business so that I can be who everyone wants me to be so that I could get more money, right? She was basically like, she's like, oh, you're so bad at business. You're so unprofessional. And I'm like, you think money is what drives me? Like, you don't know anything about me. I speak what I believe to be true because I believe what I believe to be true is good for the future of this world, which is good for my children. And I don't care about, I'm not, you don't think I'm aware that if I was clean shaved all the time and I dressed in button downs and a suit and I set up my background so that it looked very professional and I spoke very milquetoast and just talked about education, that I can make more money? Yeah, I'm well aware of that. I don't care. And the reason parents seek me out is because I'm moral, I'm honest, and I'm intelligent. And I display that in spades. And that's what people want in educators, right? Oh, like, blend in, be like everyone else. No, I don't care to be. I don't want to be. I don't want to live my life that way. I'm living my life the way I want to live it, on my terms. And, as soon as people stop viewing money as their God, then that just becomes obvious. It's like, no, I'm out here in my dirty allegedly shirt that my daughter probably spit on before I came out here. I haven't, my face. This is how I want to live. I'm a homesteader. I live my life with my hands in the dirt. I'm not a special boy. I don't care to be a special boy. And, that's not for everyone. If that rubs people the wrong way, they can go. Like, they can go. I'm not for them. That's fine. I'll attract my flock, and I'll build my flock. And my flock, the meek shall inherit the earth. And my flock will be the meek, and we will inherit the earth. Right? Yeah, check out hslda.org. That is the best place to find the regulations or to get, they do legal advice. I don't do legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. I don't do that. But they do that, and usually the information you're looking for is just, they have articles about it. Great organization. So you're trying to minimize the silence of science? Well, what I'm trying to do is teach children, or to make sure children have an intimate relationship with the scientific method, and to understand the method and how to use their discernment, and then to understand the difference between, even within the method, what you know and what you believe, and your belief could be rooted in very good information, so it could be true, like what your working theory is. So, like, if you read about in our experiment that when oxidation takes place, electrons are removed from the apple by the oxygen, and that's why it browns. So you read that, then you do the experiment, and you observe that effect taking place. You still don't actually know if that's what happened. What you do know is that when the apple was exposed to oxygen, it when the apple was exposed to oxygen, it browned. Based on your reading, you strongly believe, hypothesize, that the reason for that is the oxidation process involves the removing of the electrons from the apple into the air, and that's what caused the browning. And that you could tell people, this is how it operates, and this is your working belief. But the problem is people in our society lose the ability to separate the two. They're like, hey, listen, I read that when the apple hits the air, there would be browning, right? That's an effect, right? You then do the experiment, even with the method, and you observe that effect. And you're saying, so in your reading, it was like, and the electrons are the reason for that. So now you're like, oh, I observed the effect. All right, the electrons. But you don't really know the electrons are the reason for that. You see what I'm saying? It's a scientific confirmation bias. Now, as your children get older, they can start to do more complex experiments where they actually do test for the electrons, right? And that gets into deeper complexities. But the problem is, from a young age, children aren't taught that. So they're just they observe effects. They're told, and we know the reason for the effect. This is the reason for the effect, and now you know science. And the reasons are often right. They're often correct, but you don't really know it, right? You don't really know it. And it's very hard to talk to people there are widely held scientific beliefs that people have, and it's very hard to get that concept through to them. Like, no, what you're doing is you're observing an effect, and everyone agrees that that effect is taking place. But what's happening is then someone is attributing a cause to that effect, and you're just accepting it because you see the effect. So we're really trying to train their minds how to think. And when you do that, it's very powerful. And this is only the beginning. This was our first lesson. I'm going to get increasingly better. Same thing with the guide stones. I'm going to get increasingly better at focusing on how do we really pin down teaching them the thinking process and how to separate what you know from sound theory, right? Like the whole oxidation process, it is sound theory as to what's happening versus, okay, also just complete conjecture. And the more we teach our children to separate these things, you're really giving them a degree in the process of thinking. Now, like a lot of the things I say, right? Like you can't follow me without being insulted by things I say because I'm so all over the place, right? Because I really am a free thinker, right? And it's jarring to people because there's not a large percentage of our society that think freely. The people that follow me are free thinkers, right? But from following me, like, it's self-evident. You could follow me, like, seriously for 1 month, and you're like, this guy knows a lot about how the world functions and stuff like that. And the reason for that, and the reason I'm able to do that is because years ago, I really embraced the process of thinking. So with my story, I was a historian, and I got a degree in history education, and I got a master's degree. I got a 4.0 GPA, blah, blah, blah. That's nice. No one cares. Just the idea that these were my thinking processes and whatnot. And after college, I had come across people who made some claims. And, my reaction was, because I really bought into authority. And my reaction was, okay, you're an idiot. I'm like, all right. So, but I was a historian. I knew how to get back to documents. I'm very good at, that's why with the Georgia Guidestones, it took me probably 3 hours to find the primary documents and basically the manifesto that came with the Guidestones that 99% of the truth community, and these are very smart people, they didn't even know this thing existed, right? It took me 3 hours, what they had looked at for years, and I got it, right? I have a very particular skill set. I'm very good at getting back to documents when I really want to, getting back to primary sources. So I was like, all right, you're an idiot. I thought I was all that. Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, Brett, opposed to now, where you just think you're. but I don't even think I'm like. There's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me. But I do think I have a good thinking process. There's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me, but my process is pretty good. And so I was like, you're an idiot, and let me prove you wrong quickly. So I buckled down and I started going, like, getting back to historical documents of all these ridiculous claims that were being made. And then claim after claim, I was realizing that I was the idiot and their claims are correct. But, like, their claims couldn't be correct because it would eviscerate my whole worldview. So they were correct. So I started really studying from them. I learned about concepts like intellectual self-defense. And the person I'm talking about is Richard Grove, and his podcast, The Peace Revolution, which it's just so phenomenal. Richard Grove, the guy is just unbelievable, and like Richard Grove is a lot smarter than me. Richard Grove is just one of a kind. He is some guy, but so I really started to evaluate how he knew what he knew, and I really started to evaluate my own process of thinking. Because one of the problems you find with people who wake up, right, like they quote unquote wake up, or they think they're truthers or whatnot, is they recognize there's a lie, like the mainstream system is lying. But they never evaluate why they were fooled. They never evaluate why they were fooled. So they'll go from that to, then they'll go to, Hillary Clinton's in the sewers. Her and her people are in the sewers, and we're gonna get them, right? Like, and you're like, you're not thinking yet. Like, you may have identified some true things, and some of the things they say are true, but until you evaluate why you were fooled in the first place, until you evaluate your process of thinking, then you're just gonna get fooled again. And what people don't understand is that there are very powerful financial interests who spend a lot of time and money to destroy your mind. They spend a lot of time and money to do psychological operations. And they have operations like, if there's a segment of the population waking up to certain things, they'll start to release new psychological operations aimed at that segment of the population. And then I can't talk about these things too much. Like, I'm sorry, they don't let me get into these stuff too much. But like, you look at what happened with like Cambridge Analytica, and like, what do you think that data was used for? And they're creating, that's like, we're in the age of information. They're breaking you into groups. They're creating psychological profiles. Like, people talk about Facebook selling, your information and whatnot. But like, you don't think there's, like, understand, like, it doesn't take a lot of discernment to figure out. So you don't think the Central Intelligence Agency, right, has smart computers, right? And they're taking all that data and they're breaking up segments of the population, right? By the way, this is why they're so good at predicting, because they have algorithms, predictive programming algorithms, where they could say, in this scenario, based on our data, what is the likely way in which people respond. It's the same way how certain applications know, like, they can feed you videos that you're just so interested in, and you don't even realize you've been scrolling for 2 hours. These are profiles created on you. They're, right? So, and then the CIA and Mossad and MI6 and all of these intelligence agencies are putting together these very accurate, these are very accurate psychological profiles, and then they're creating operations aimed at segments of the population. By the way, imagine if these oh so smart people that were like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist here. Like, these people are so lost. They have no idea how the world functions. Not the slightest clue. sneaking on for a minute while the kids eat lunch. I miss the lives so much. Come back to us. Ah, Foster Bear. Yes, you are, Brett. You are honest, and that helps others. Yeah, and that's what that person didn't understand. Like, people seek me out because I'm honest, I'm intelligent, and I'm moral. And that includes people that don't have the same religious beliefs as me. Like, Marine Princess is either atheist or agnostic. And by the way, she's very intelligent. She's a highly intelligent person. She values truth. And she seeks me out because I'm a moral person, because I'm an honest person, and because I'm intelligent. And, you know, yeah, and that's like that person was saying, like, oh, you're so unprofessional. Like, I don't care to be. I'm not. That's like when they called Trump unpresidential. Like, no one cares about, like, oh my God, George Bush wears a suit and proper language when he bombs the Middle East, right? Oh, Obama says he stands for justice in the social forum when he bombs the Middle East. No one cares about how presidential you act. They care about if they believe you're being honest, right? And, again, we could get into, is Trump honest or not? I don't think he's the most honest guy. Doesn't matter. The point is that people liked him because they believed he was being honest, right? That's why they like Trump, right? Not, we're always a professional, right? So, like, parents don't seek me out because, oh my God, you're so professional. You're so unprofessional. You mock your followers. I don't care. They seek me out because I'm moral, I'm honest, and I'm intelligent. And that's what they want for their children in a day and age, because that is missing in spades in the system. And, that's what it is. That's what it is, yo. You're so all right, I gotta stop. I'm not making fun of that person, by the way. This is something I do. I do this to make points. I do this to teach behavior, right? Like, the reason I was mocking what I was mocking on Instagram is I was mocking all of these people who I was accusing them of squirting. Like, basically like they were watching, dirty films when they were cheering what happened to the Guidestones, right? For those of you that don't know, they were destroyed. And I was like, I was mocking them. Like, why would you cheer on this behavior? Like, do you understand that this type of stuff is weaponized against you? Like, you just remember what I was just talking about with all the algorithms? Like, this type of stuff, it doesn't mean it was, but like, how you react could either work in your favor or could work in the favor of people that have interests that are the opposite of yours. And those people, it's like when you play a sport game, like you're playing a sporting game, there's like two guys playing football. And after the play, one of the guys nut taps the other guy, right? And that's infuriating. So the guy who gets nut tapped, he throws a punch and punches the other guy. Who gets thrown out of the game? The guy who threw the punch, right? Well, you got to understand that, in this world, there's a lot of people trying to nut tap you, right? There's a lot of people, a lot of institutions, a lot of agencies, they're trying to nut tap you. And they're trying to get a reaction out of you. And, people just fall for this stuff time and time again. So, like, when I'm making fun of this stuff, I'm not targeting the individual. I'm trying to teach people behavior and how to act and how to think. And a lot of times that people perceive that as me attacking them. Their ego gets hurt. And then the next thing you know, they hate me and they want to hurt me. And it is what it is. What it is. Oh. I spent 8 years studying the book of the Bible, and yeah, interesting story. I respect that. I don't think you have to believe what I believe. Like, hey, I actually have a lot of respect for that. You studied something for 8 years and you drew a conclusion. I have no problem with that at all. That's awesome. And I certainly don't think any less of you for that at all. Yeah. I did the same for my oldest son. I refused the meds and found natural skills. That's awesome. Wait, you're religious? I don't know, am I? You tell me if I'm religious. I'm spiritual. It probably wasn't lost on everyone when I said that I've communicated with God, so I'm definitely spiritual. And it doesn't mean I heard a big voice in the sky. Do you make curriculums with worksheets or like outlines? Yeah, so we just released our first ever science curriculum today, and we'll be releasing that periodically as we go along. I did a unit study on the Georgia Guidestones, which is all about getting back to the primary sourcing material, taking what you know versus, what you think you know and whatnot. So, yeah, we definitely make material. We have a year-long nature unit study, which children get entrepreneurial experience. They do composting, they make fertilizer, they plant seeds, they construct garden boxes, they get entrepreneurial experience. So far, the options have been through selling beeswax candles on Etsy, planting flowers, and starting a little flower business for the summer. So a lot of really good things. I teach courses on the Bill of Rights and American Revolution. I teach courses on propaganda. I teach courses on the media industrial complex. I just released an assignment a day or two ago, a construction assignment on building a little community library, they're called. So yeah, we do a lot of stuff like that. Jesus was not a capitalist, that's for sure. Yes and no. He wasn't a capitalist or a socialist. So when people try to make that argument, it's like Jesus is just above that. Jesus was a socialist. He was a communist in the sense that Jesus believed in voluntary community, in that you volunteer and you love your neighbor, and you share with your neighbor. If that's your definition of a socialist and communist, then I'm a socialist or a communist, right? Like, understand that. But when people are like, oh, he was for the state using violence to, put forward a economic or political doctrine, no, Jesus. I don't speak for Jesus, but no. That's why people like, is it right learning or left learning? Like, am I right wing or left wing? You know, good luck pinning me down on that, because I could spend the next 20 minutes ripping capitalism. I could spend the next 20 minutes ripping socialism, communism. I consider myself an environmentalist, although I don't believe in man-made climate change, right? I could spend all day ripping Monsanto and the chemicals and what they do to our food. I'm a homesteader. I grow my own food. So I'm an ardent defender of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I am probably the greatest believer in the right to bear arms. So, I mean, if you want to try to pin me in a box, you can. And certainly, as certain lessons of mine, people will look at it and be like, oh, that's right wing. And other lessons of mine you can look at and be like, oh, that's left wing. Again, once you get into the world of free thinking and using your discernment and the process of thinking, it's very hard to put someone in a box. So, I'm not for everyone, and I don't pretend to be. And I think that's what makes me valuable. And that's, yeah, sure, I could, like, if I wanted to, I could be a sellout and be like, I'm ultra right-wing curriculum. Or if I really want, the easiest way to sell out in modern society is to go ultra left-wing material. Because then you could get if I went ultra left-wing material, if I was going to sell out, that's what I would do. Because that's the easiest way to get all the authoritative bodies to back your stuff. Like, I could do that easily, and I could get the New York Times and Washington Post and all these big publications to back what I do. So if you're going to sell out, that's definitely the way to go. Yes, I believe the Bible portrays women fairly. And I'm not getting into dinosaurs. Hold on, it jumped. Yeah, it's classicallearnertoday at gmail.com is my email. Classicallearnertoday at gmail.com. Classicallearnertoday at gmail.com. Website is www.classicallearner.com. Although don't email me through the website email. It's a different email. I need to check those emails. It's a different email. And Homeschools Connected is what we do. The live classes are for the propaganda class is best for elementary and middle school. The Bill of Rights class is probably best for middle school, high school, although the elementary could benefit from it. The Media Industrial Complex class is for middle school, high school. The Nature Unit Study, which is my favorite thing that we've done, is for children of all ages. And like I said, I mean, they are planting seeds, composting, making fertilizer, constructing garden boxes, making bee feeders, making bee baths, ladybug feeders, getting entrepreneurial experience, just, really cool stuff. It just now told me you are live. Yeah, I've been trying to make announcements in Homeschools Connected. I figured I'd just let you, because my times have been a little sporadic. But I really wanted to get the science curriculum out this morning, so I was about an hour late because I was doing that. Oh, yeah, sorry, I haven't been doing consultations on the phone. But you don't even want that. Like, a consultation is $300. I've been turning them down. The best way to get access to me is just join Homeschools Connected. It's $10 a month. We have a full-time, 24/7 instant message. You can message me. I'll always message you back. Give me a few days because I get so many inboxes. But yeah, you have a full-time access to me. You get access to Melissa and Marine Princess and hundreds of homeschool parents with an accumulative thousands of years of experience. You get access to all my curriculum research. So you don't even need to pay me $300. It's okay. I haven't been taking the consultations because if I do that, I can't put the same time in to building out curriculum for Homeschools Connected. And at this point, my loyalty is to the people that are members of Homeschools Connected. So if I'm doing consultations, like everything I do, I put a lot of effort and energy into. Which is why I have a tendency to burn out at times, and Nicole has to check me and be like, Brett, take a step back, like kick your feet up and relax for a little bit. I have a tendency to burn out because I go so hard. And so when I do consultations, I'm setting up your entire homeschool. And because of that, like I wind up doing, I talk to you for like an hour and then 30 minutes the second time. But I wind up doing like a full week worth of work just on that. And if I do that, I can't put the time and energy into building out the curriculum for Homeschools Connected. And ultimately, that's where my loyalty is. And that's what, like, the people that are members of Homeschools Connected, I want to give them the world. That's my objective. And I'm getting there. And over the next few years, you're really going to see what that looks like. But we're doing really good things. And that's where my focus has to be, my energy. So that's where it is. They've been stealing our info long before Facebook. Yes, they have. When you sign up, we will inbox you. Speaking of which, I have to do a lot of inboxing because we had a lot of members this week, which is awesome. Everyone wanted our unit study on the guide stones. I put so much work into that. I I think I did about 8 consecutive hours of reading before I even started the unit, like to do the unit. Yeah, Maureen, I don't know if you saw that. I didn't know if you had a label. I was like, I don't know if you're atheist, agnostic, but what I was saying is that you're a phenomenal human being who values truth. And, ultimately what our community are a group of people that value truth. And, our conclusion, right, our hypothesis or our educated guess as to what truth is varies amongst people. But ultimately, my people are just the people of truth. That's why, like, I have no problem with Like, I love Muslim people. I love Jewish people. Like, people that I love atheist people that value truth. But I don't love all of, people of these delineations because a lot of those people don't value truth. Like, there's no special boy. Like, being Christian doesn't make you the special boy. Being Muslim doesn't make you the special boy, So, my people are the people that seek truth in their life, and that comes in all forms, and people draw different conclusions. But my enemies are the people of the lie, people that knowingly embrace lies, because when people knowingly embrace lies, that takes them down a very dangerous path that takes this world down a very dangerous path. And because of that, those aren't my people. Unique Soul has suspicions about me. All right. We are all just parents awake to the world, trying to prevent our kids from getting caught up. Right, why is it so hard to agree to disagree? Right. I mean, I like being around people that think differently than me because they help open up my consciousness. And one of the people that really helped open up my consciousness was my good friend Dave. And many years ago, I was very rigid in my thinking. I hadn't read. This is before my awakening, before I trained myself how to think. And me and this guy Dave, this great guy, and we were friends growing up our whole lives, and we were like 23 years old. I'm 22, 23, maybe probably younger, maybe in college, 21. And we were at a party and we were drinking. You know what? I was in college because it was Obama was president. I'm aging myself. So we were at a party and we were both drunk and we started arguing about politics. And like by the end of the night, we were literally screaming at each other. Like my thinking process was terrible. I didn't have the ability to hear out arguments like 99% of society, like all the arguments you see on Facebook. Now I could literally sit down with anyone and they could say the most insulting things and I could just calmly, like, Socratic reasoning, be like, so why do you think that? So why do you think that? I don't, I've gotten very good at that. So we were literally screaming at each other, but we were friends. And over the next couple of years, we wound up always talking about that stuff. And we learned to sit down and hear each other out. And a lot of what he had to say, and he's a left wing liberal, and a lot of what he had to say is still very true to this day. And like, he woke me up to a lot of that stuff. Now, that wasn't like my awakening, like, really happened years later, like I said, when I really started to get into how the world functions. But he taught me a lot about the world and the value of hearing people, and realizing that the only thing you know is you know nothing. And because of that, I actually enjoy, like, I'll sit down with liberal or conservative, whatever, and I'll talk to them all about their worldview. And what I've gotten good at is not hitting them with my worldview, ironically, because you listen to this. Like, they won't even know my worldview. I'll be like, oh, yeah? So, and I'll just ask them, what do you think about this? When I agree with them, I'll be like, yeah, well, that's what it is. And maybe I'll add one little point that kind of brings them toward me. Because most people aren't capable of hearing what I believe. So, like, I've learned to control that. But, like, it's a very good skill. It gets back to Ben Franklin. His father used to invite random people in the community to his house, and he would have them over for dinner, and he would ask them about politics and their worldview, because he wanted to train Ben to listen to what people had to say. And there's a very powerful lesson in that. It started at the beginning of the year, but the lessons are in a way in which you can still do them. Like last week, the children were foraging for dandelions, learning about the dandelion and making dandelion jelly. This week, no, it's 2 weeks ago. Last week, the children were learning about purple dead nettle. And then they learned that purple dead nettle is good for your kidney. Then they were learning what the kidney is and what the kidney does. So you can still do it. Yeah, I mean, truth is, she said, I'm not suggesting you are either. I wanted to see if the curriculum was influenced by either. Yeah, I mean, of course, my curriculum is influenced by my worldview, right? There is no escaping having a teacher be influenced by their worldview. I think my worldview is a little bit more open and free than most, but yeah, of course, my curriculum's influenced by my worldview. But like, my worldview is that, like, this stuff's not even the important stuff. My worldview is that children should be critical thinkers. Like, that should be the objective. That my worldview is that skills need to be prioritized. Like, children need to know construction, engineering, computer coding, photography, videography, art, music. Like, these are what children need to know. That children should have entrepreneurial experience embedded throughout their childhood, and that the goal of an education should be to make sure that your child isn't dependent on the government, corporations, or even yourself when they graduate. So, those are the important things of my worldview. Yeah, we try to keep it as cheap as possible. Like today's science experiment that we posted. I mean, everyone has apples, orange juice, water, salt water, sugar. So you don't need to buy anything to do the science experiment. That was my other criterion that I told Nicole. I really want to set up the experiments as best we can so that you have everything already. This way everyone could just do them. You guys would be surprised. I really don't even care. Like, a lot of my videos I do are like rhetorical and to get traction, but like I really don't even care so much about like capitalism versus socialism versus communism. Like, my whole issue is like the bigger problem is lack of morality in our society. The because the capitalist system is horribly corrupted by lack of morality, just like the socialist communist system is horribly corrupted by lack of morality. And you could take any system and corrupt it, but you could take any system and you could corrupt it. So it's like, yeah, do I lean more toward capitalism? Yes, because I think it's inherently better to have upward mobility, and it's inherently better to not just, give the state additional power. But then the capitalists become the state. But like, when you get to like socialism, communism, and the state has a lot of power to just, what happens in these countries where they just lock everyone, political dissidents in prison and whatnot. But either way, all the systems are they're corrupted by immorality. So I don't feel like getting too into it. I've done it before. I don't feel like getting too into that. Yeah, the nature unit study is really cool. It's my baby. I put so much energy into it, and I still haven't figured out exactly what we're doing this week. I was sitting on the couch with Nicole last night, and I looked over at her, and I was like, I'm so burnt out right now. And she was like, just put it down. And I was like, all right, so I'm gonna try to do that later today and get it ready for this week. Yeah, we have recordings of all the live classes. Have you done the nature classes? It's like 2 hours a week or more or less. It depends on the which week it is. Some weeks are longer than others. They're pretty comprehensive though. Like, I make these things. Like I said, I take a lot of pride in my work, and I really put a lot of energy and effort into them. So yeah, at the child's pace. So. And yes, never pick herbs that are areas that are sprayed with pesticides. Yeah, my wife is an acupuncturist. She crushes. Oh, I'm so excited. Marine Princess made an alphabet coloring book, and she's going to upload it onto the Discord. So that's another thing we have, where we have a section where it's called Parent Made Lesson Plans, where anyone could upload the lesson plans into that section, and then, we could all just build together, kind of like open source curriculum. No, we never charge you anything extra. The yeah, you get everything we've mentioned is in the curriculum. Even with the propaganda class, which uses the Cubs to Bears books, you don't have to buy the Cubs to Bears books. I literally just read them to the kids in the class. So yeah, you don't have to buy extra stuff. So, all right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Covered some good topics today. Got a little deep, got a little intense, got a little personal. And, that's what you get here. That's what you get here with the Classical Learner live stream. You never know what you're going to get. It's kind of like a box of chocolates. Anyway, that's what Mama said. So, ClassicalLearner.com, Homeschools Connected, discount code FREEDOM. And it's $10 a month. That's all lowercase. Freedom isn't free. We have to earn it every day. And I will undoubtedly be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Eastern to earn it. You will now watch as I casually sip on delicious ice water for 10 seconds to make up for the delay. And I slurp. Your slurping is so unprofessional. You slurping, you're so unprofessional. I gotta go water the plants.